Hey everyone, Drew Hinton with Aero Safety back for another Work Tip Wednesday. Today we're going to be discussing air monitoring. So when you look at air monitoring, we're going to discuss specifically the person doing the air monitoring. Because OSHA is very silent about this particular topic. They will tell you that you have to do air monitoring. If you look at the HAZWOPER standard 1910-120, they're going to tell you that you have to do monitoring to determine any IDOH atmospheres, figure out where your hot, warm, and cold zones are, things like that. If you look at 1910-146, it also tells you you have to do air monitoring. They also have an Appendix B, which gives you guidance for the air monitoring itself, but it only has five different bullet points. And so if you look at that, it's going to tell you, the 1910-146 Appendix B, it's going to tell you to do the testing in a certain order. If you're monitoring for oxygen, you should be doing oxygen first because most meters will require oxygen to operate properly. Monitor for your LEL, your combustible explosives second, and then toxics last. It's going to tell you that if you're doing inside of a vertical type confined space, drop it down to 4-foot increments, monitor straight down as well as side to side if you can do so. But that's about the extent of what OSHA tells you as far as air monitoring. It doesn't really tell you how to do it for the most part. It doesn't really tell you who can do it. So that's what we're going to focus on. And I'm going to refer you to two NFPA standards in particular. The first one is going to be NFPA 350, which is the Guide for Safe Confined Space Entry and Work. And in this confined space standard from NFPA, you're going to find what they refer to as a gas tester. So the person doing the actual testing in the atmosphere, they refer to it as a gas tester. They will also have what they call job performance requirements, JPRs, within that standard. So it's going to give you qualifications and competencies for that gas tester. So if you're looking to train people on how to use the meters and how to use the equipment, that is a good place to start out, especially if you're dealing with confined space. So again, look for the terminology gas tester in that standard. It's going to be, you're going to find that in the chapter. It's going to give you the JPR. So these are the things that they should be able to demonstrate. So how to inspect it, select the proper meter, do bump testing, calibration, things like that, zero it out, fresh air calibration, all those good things. But also if you look at NFPA 470, so NFPA 470 is a combination of standards, but it's going to be dealing with hazardous materials and WMD incidents, weapons of mass destruction. Even though it's dealing with hazmat, so maybe you don't deal with hazmat, maybe you do specifically deal with confined spaces, or maybe you're at a construction site and you're the competent person that needs to do the evaluation of the atmosphere at that excavation site or trench. This can still apply across the board. So if you look in that NFPA 470, they will have an advanced monitoring and detection specialty. And so if you want to go into that and be a specialist in this area, they're actually going to have 19 types of equipment that you are required to at least talk about, demonstrate that you understand how to do that, and be able to tell the difference between those types of equipment, ranging from pH strips to combustible gas indicators, colorimetric tubes, also referred to as Draeger tubes. There's 19 different ones that you have to be able to demonstrate your knowledge and competency on that particular one. So again, same thing there. They're going to have qualifications and they're going to have competencies that you have to demonstrate. So NFPA 350, NFPA 470 are two great standards from NFPA that will deal with atmospheric testing. So it shouldn't be us just giving the person a meter if we're doing hot work. You know, if you're looking at hot work, NFPA 51B, it tells you you have to ensure that there is not a flammable atmosphere. Well, how do you ensure that? Sometimes maybe a little bit easier than others, but a lot of times you can't 100% be certain that there is not a flammable atmosphere or explosive atmosphere without monitoring equipment. So are we simply giving our welders and people doing hot work, are we simply just giving them a meter and telling them that when it goes beep, 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 or you see the lights flash, vibrate, whatever it may be, to evacuate, to figure out what's going on? That shouldn't be what we're doing. We should be training them on how to use the meter. At a minimum, what the meter is actually showing us. So if it's a simple 4-gas meter, hey, here's your carbon monoxide sensor readings, here's your LEL, or if you're using MSA, it's going to say COMB/EX, combustible explosives, here's your O2, and here's your H2S. If you have 5-gas meter, 6-gas, or even single gas that deals with specific toxics, then make sure we're training them on what they're actually looking for. Make them understand what happens when what causes that alarm to go off, and when it does, what should be their next actions. So when we're looking at these things, no matter what your task is, if you're going into confined spaces, if you're going into a hazmat, WMD incident, working on excavation sites where that competent person has to evaluate those atmospheres, then make sure that we are ensuring that person is qualified to perform that task. Simply handing it to them does not meet that qualification. We have to train them. One thing that we like to use during our training exercise to help them understand the meter is a HAZSIM device. And so a HAZSIM device is a training simulator. It is dealing with different types of gas detection. You can change out the interfaces on this particular training simulator. You can attach tubing, and you can control these things. So rather than just simply saying, hey, let's say that you have 5 parts per million in this situation, or we stick a piece of tape a piece of paper up to a wall and say what your readings are, we can actually simulate those readings on there. So it's great if you want to do a simulation for training without actually exposing them to toxic chemicals. We can simulate all this stuff, change the readings, make the alarms go off, makes it really realistic. But again, we want to make sure that we are looking for those qualifications, those competencies, referencing NFPA 350 as well as NFPA 470 to ensure that with the people doing the testing, no matter what the task is, no matter what the environment, are actually qualified to do so. Because if something were to happen and that person doesn't actually have those qualifications, that's going to be causing an issue, because why was that person in the space? That's one of the requirements of NFPA 350, is to be able to interpret those readings and determine what that risk, factor that into your risk assessment. Are those readings safe for entry? If they're not, what mitigation measures should we be doing? It also tells you that the gas tester, again, the gas tester is the person doing the monitoring, should be qualified as an entrant, because they may have to go inside that space as an entrant in order to obtain the readings initially. So again, NFPA 350, NFPA 470, 2 great standards. Appreciate your all's time. If you all want to ask questions or have concerns about any kind of your monitoring equipment, feel free to reach out to us and we'll be glad to help. Thanks again and have a great day.